Hello, my name is Sully Devricks. Today, I'll be presenting on the operating systems and firewalls we are using throughout this lab. I'll be covering Windows Server 2022, Ubuntu Server 24.04, and their respective host-based firewalls. The purpose of this presentation is to explain the technical security features of each system, discuss hardening techniques, and show how these concepts apply directly to our lab environment and real-world server administration. This slide outlines what I'll be covering today. I'll begin with an overview of the lab environment to provide context for the systems we're working with. Then, I'll discuss the technical features and hardening strategies for Windows Server 2022, as well as Ubuntu Server 24.04. After that, I'll cover Windows Defender Firewall and IP tables, compare Windows and Linux security models, and finish by explaining how all of this applies to our lab work. Overview of our lab environment. Our lab environment consists of two server operating systems, one being Windows Server 2022 and the second being Ubuntu Server 24.04. Both servers run in a virtualized environment which allows us to safely configure, secure, and test systems without impacting real infrastructure. We use static IP addressing with CIDR notation to better understand networking concepts like segmentation and access control. Each system uses a host-based firewall, and we configure both standard and administrative user accounts. In real-world environments, virtualization is commonly used to test security changes before deploying them to production. This lab setup allows us to experiment, make mistakes, and fix them safely, which is a critical skill for system and security administrators. Windows Server 2022 technical features. Windows Server 2022 is an enterprise-grade operating system designed to support services such as Active Directory, file and print services, virtualization, and application hosting. One of its major strengths is its secure by default architecture. Features like Credential Guard protect credentials using virtualization-based security, while Secure Boot and TPM integration help protect the system during startup. Windows Server is widely used in enterprise environments because it scales well and integrates tightly with Microsoft ecosystems. Understanding these security features in the lab directly translates to real-world environments where identity and access management are critical. Windows Server 2022 hardening. Hardening Windows Server starts with reducing the attack surface by only enabling the roles and services that are required. Unused services, such as the print spooler, are often targeted by attackers and should be disabled when not needed. Strong authentication policies are enforced through group policy, including password complexity and account lockout settings. Windows Defender Exploit Guard provides additional protection against memory-based attacks and least privileges applied by separating administrative accounts from daily use accounts. Hardening is important because many real-world attacks exploit default settings or unnecessary services. Ubuntu Server 24.04 technical features. Ubuntu Server 24.04 is a Linux-based, lightweight operating system optimized for networking, cloud environments, and containers. It uses systemd to manage services and logging, which gives administrators fine-grained control over what runs on the system. AppArmor provides mandatory access control, and kernel features like namespaces and cgroups help isolate processes. Package management through APT ensures software integrity through signed repositories, which helps prevent unauthorized or malicious software from being installed. Ubuntu Server 24.04 hardening. Hardening Ubuntu Server is more manual compared to Windows. SSH security is especially important since it is the primary method of remote management. Root login is disabled, key-based authentication is preferred, and access is limited to specific users. The attack surface is reduced by removing unused packages and disabling unnecessary services. Linux systems provide a lot of flexibility, but that flexibility also means more responsibility. Misconfigured SSH settings or AppArmor profiles can easily expose a system if proper hardening steps are skipped. Windows Firewall Technical Overview. Windows Defender Firewall is a stateful, host-based firewall integrated directly into Windows Server. It filters traffic based on ports, protocols, applications, IP addresses, and direction. The firewall supports 3 profiles: domain, private, and public, which allows different security rules depending on the network environment. Because it integrates with group policy, firewall rules can be managed centrally, making it ideal for enterprise and domain-based environments. Windows Firewall Hardening. Firewall hardening begins with a default deny inbound approach, meaning all inbound traffic is blocked unless explicitly allowed. Administrative access, such as remote desktop, should be restricted to trusted IP addresses. Firewall profiles must be configured correctly, especially for domain-joined servers. Firewall rules are one of the first layers of defense against network-based attacks, so careful configuration and logging are essential for both security and troubleshooting. IP tables technical overview. IP tables is a packet filtering firewall framework built directly into the Linux kernel. It processes traffic using tables, chains, and rules. Common tables include filter and NAT, and traffic is evaluated through chains such as input, output, and forward. IP tables use connection tracking to perform stateful inspection, allowing it to distinguish between new, established, and invalid connections. IP tables hardening. IP tables hardening begins with implementing a default deny policy for inbound and forwarded traffic. Only required services such as SSH are explicitly allowed. Invalid packets are dropped to protect against spoofing and malformed traffic. One common mistake with IP tables is forgetting to save rules after a reboot. Tools like IP tables persistent are used to ensure firewall rules remain active, which is critical in real-world environments. Now for a security comparison. This is Windows versus Linux. Windows and Linux use different security approaches. Windows relies on centralized security through Active Directory and group policy, making it policy-driven and easier to manage across many systems. Linux uses a decentralized model where security is manually configured through permissions, services, and firewall rules. Neither operating system is inherently more secure. Security depends heavily on how the system is configured and maintained, which is one of the main lessons this lab is designed to teach. How this applies to our lab. In our lab, Windows Server security is enforced primarily through centralized policies, roles, and Windows firewall rules. Ubuntu Server security is built manually through configuration files, sudo permissions, and IP tables rules. This lab helps build real-world administrative skills by requiring us to apply least privilege, use default deny firewall policies, and validate security configurations through logs and testing instead of simply following steps. This is the Works Cited page. These references come from authoritative sources such as Microsoft, Canonical, the Center for Internet Security, NetFilter, and NIST. They provide industry standard guidance on operating systems and firewall security and support the technical details and hardening recommendations discussed in this presentation. Thank you so much.